The last thing I remember about Michael before everything fell apart was the look in his eyes when he asked, "Are you leaving me for him?" I didn't answer. Maybe I couldn't. Maybe deep down I already had. The silence between us that night was unbearable. The kitchen smelled faintly of burnt coffee and rain-soaked asphalt from the storm outside. I stood there, my hand gripping the counter, my throat tight with guilt. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot from nights without sleep, and all I could think about was how far we'd drifted from who we used to be. We had been married for 12 years. Built a life from scratch. A house, a business, a rhythm that felt unbreakable, until I broke it. Michael was kind, steady, dependable to a fault. He loved quietly with small gestures. A hand on my shoulder, my favorite tea waiting when I got home, the porch light always left on. But somewhere along the way, his steadiness began to feel suffocating. Routine became repetition. Repetition became resentment. And then there was Ryan. He was everything Michael wasn't. Charming, impulsive, reckless. He worked at my firm, knew how to make me laugh in the middle of chaos. What started as harmless conversation turned into something that consumed me. I convinced myself it was love, but looking back now, it feels more like an escape I mistook for freedom. The night Michael found out was the night our home stopped feeling like one. He didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't even cry. He just looked at me like I was a stranger who'd broken into his life. "I thought we were happy," he said softly, his voice trembling. "I thought we were safe." And that was the worst part because in some twisted way I thought so too. After the divorce, Michael left quietly. No fights, no scenes, just disappeared. I got the house, the car, and most of the savings. It felt fair at the time. He didn't argue, just signed the papers and walked away. For a while, I told myself he'd be fine. That he needed space. That maybe someday he'd find someone better. But months turned into a year, and I never heard from him again. Ryan and I moved in together soon after. He was everything he promised he'd be at first. Exciting, spontaneous, alive. But it didn't last. The thrill faded, replaced by tension and half-truths. I began noticing the same patterns I once blamed Michael for. Distance, avoidance, indifference. Only this time I was on the receiving end. Sometimes late at night I'd dream of Michael. Not as the man I betrayed, but as the one who used to hold me when I cried over trivial things, who made pancakes on Sundays, who'd whisper, "We'll be okay." I'd wake up drenched in regret, staring at a ceiling that no longer felt like home. Then one afternoon everything changed. It was raining again, the kind of cold drizzle that makes the world feel gray. I was sitting in my car outside a cafe, waiting for Ryan, who was running late as usual. I glanced at the people hurrying by, clutching umbrellas, coats pulled tight. That's when I saw him. Michael. Or at least I thought it was him. He stood near a convenience store, hair longer than I remembered. His clothes worn and damp. His hands were shoved into his pockets, and his eyes, God, his eyes, looked hollow, like he'd stopped expecting good things to happen. He was thinner, older somehow, and my heart seized in my chest. Froze. I wanted to get out of the car, to call his name, to say something. But guilt glued me to the seat. What would I even say? "I'm sorry you're homeless because of me." Before I could move, he turned and walked down the alley beside the store, disappearing into the mist. I didn't sleep that night. The image of him haunted me. The same man who once gave me everything, now reduced to nothing. The next day I went looking for him. I told Ryan I was visiting a friend, then drove through every park, every street corner downtown. I asked around in shelters, but no one recognized the name. Some said maybe he'd moved cities. Others said maybe he hadn't made it. Each word hit me like a stone. Weeks passed. My relationship with Ryan crumbled. He confessed he'd been seeing someone else for months. The irony wasn't lost on me. When he left, he didn't even take his things right away. Just his keys and his phone. Suddenly I was alone again. Only this time I didn't have anyone left to blame. I tried to rebuild my life. I went to therapy, took extra work hours, stopped drinking so much. But the guilt stayed like a shadow that followed me everywhere. Then, a year and a half after the divorce, I heard his name again. It was a Monday morning. I was in line at the grocery store, scrolling through my phone, when I heard two women chatting behind me. "Did you hear about that guy who just inherited $47 million? One of them said. "Apparently, he was homeless for years before someone found him." Her friend gasped. "Seriously? That's insane. What's his name?" "Michael Turner, I think." My heart stopped. I turned so fast the groceries in my basket almost spilled. "Excuse me," I said, my voice shaking. "Did you say Michael Turner?" They both looked at me, startled. "Yeah," the first woman said. "He's on the news, something about a distant relative who passed away. He was living on the streets when a lawyer tracked him down." I didn't even pay for my groceries. I left the cart where it was and ran to my car. My hands trembled as I searched his name online, and there it was. His photo on every major news site. Michael, standing beside a sleek black car, wearing a clean shirt, his hair trimmed, smiling awkwardly beside a man in a suit. The headline read, "Former homeless man inherits $47 million from unknown benefactor." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. The man I broke, the man I abandoned when he had nothing left, was now someone the world was celebrating. And me. I was sitting alone in my car, tears streaking my cheeks, wondering if this was what karma looked like. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the irony of it all. How the man I thought wasn't enough had become everything I wasn't brave enough to see. I told myself I'd reach out, maybe to apologize, maybe just to see if he was okay. But every message I tried to write felt selfish, rehearsed. I deleted them all. Until the next morning when I saw him again. He was standing outside the cafe where we used to go on weekends, wearing a tailored coat, talking to someone I didn't recognize. He looked peaceful, lighter, like he'd finally forgiven life for what it took from him. And that's when he turned and saw me. Our eyes met across the street. My breath caught. For a moment, the world went silent except for the sound of cars and my heart pounding in my ears. He stared, expression unreadable, then crossed the street slowly. When he reached me, he didn't look angry or surprised. Just calm. "Are you following me?" he asked gently. "No," I whispered. I saw you." He nodded, glancing at me with that same quiet kindness I once took for granted. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You look like you've been carrying a heavy burden. Let it go, Emily." I wanted to say 1,000 things, to explain, to beg for forgiveness, but my throat wouldn't let me. He smiled faintly, turned, and began to walk away. I watched him disappear once more, not into an alley this time, but into a future that no longer needed me. And for the first time I realized what true loss really feels like. 4 days after that encounter, I couldn't stop replaying it in my mind. The way he looked at me, not with anger, but with a calm detachment that felt more painful than any accusation ever could. It wasn't forgiveness I saw in his eyes. It was closure. He had moved on. He had found peace, perhaps even redemption, while I was still stuck in the ruins of the life I'd destroyed. But something inside me wouldn't rest. I needed to understand. How did he go from sleeping on cold sidewalks to inheriting $47 million from a stranger? What kind of miracle did the world give to him after I took everything away? A week later, I found myself standing outside the office of Harris & Cole, the law firm listed in one of the articles about his inheritance. My hands were cold, even though it wasn't winter. I told myself I was just curious, that I'd come this far only to know the truth. But deep down, I wanted to see if he'd even acknowledge me again. The receptionist recognized his name instantly. "Mr. Turner's been in a few times this week," she said politely. "He's meeting with the trustees this afternoon. Would you like to leave a message?" I hesitated. No, thank you." As I turned to leave, a voice behind me said softly, "Emily." Froze. When I turned, Michael was standing there, holding a folder and looking genuinely surprised. His expression wasn't angry. Just curious, as if he was trying to make sense of why I'd appeared in this chapter of his new life. "I wasn't expecting to see you here," he said, his tone gentle but distant. "I know," I whispered. I wanted to talk. If that's okay." He studied me for a long moment before nodding. "There's a park across the street. Let's talk there." We walked in silence, the sound of the city filling the space between us. I noticed small details, the way he carried himself now, straighter, more assured. The faint smell of cologne, the expensive watch on his wrist. He was no longer the broken man I'd last seen disappearing into the rain. When we sat on a bench beneath an old oak tree, I finally spoke. "I heard about the inheritance," I said. "I'm happy for you." He nodded slightly. "Thank you." I wanted him to ask how I'd been, to show some trace of the man who once cared so deeply, but he didn't. He just waited quietly, patient, as if he knew I had more to say. "I saw you that day," I confessed. "Outside the store. You looked lost. I should have helped. I wanted to. But I didn't." He looked down, exhaled slowly. "It's okay, Emily. You didn't owe me that." His words cut deeper than any anger could. "I still feel guilty," I admitted. "I can't forgive myself for what I did, for what I became. You deserved better." He turned his head slightly, meeting my gaze. "Maybe. But we both made choices that led us here. I was blind to how unhappy you were. I thought love meant staying still when it really meant growing together. I stopped listening and you looked elsewhere. It hurt like hell, but I understand now." His calmness unnerved me. There was no bitterness in his tone, just acceptance, which somehow made my shame heavier. Took a breath. "Who left you the money, Michael?" He smiled faintly, looking out at the pond shimmering in front of us. "A man named Richard Bennett. I didn't know him personally, not until recently. He was my father's half-brother, apparently. Never married, never had kids. When he passed away, the lawyers spent months trying to find his next of kin. Turns out that was me." "That's unbelievable," I murmured. He nodded. "Yeah, I thought it was a scam at first. But it wasn't just the money. He left letters, journals, stories about our family. He'd followed my life from a distance. Said he admired how I treated people even when I had nothing left." I blinked. "He knew you were homeless." "Yes. One of the lawyers found me under a bridge near Westbrook Avenue." He chuckled softly. "Said he almost didn't approach me because I looked so rough. I tried to picture it. The moment a stranger walked up to the man I'd abandoned and told him his life was about to change forever. The irony made my chest ache. "What will you do now?" I asked quietly. He leaned back, his eyes following a couple of kids playing nearby. "I bought a few shelters. Started a foundation. There are people out there who need someone to believe in them, even if they've lost everything. I know what that feels like." His voice wavered slightly, and I saw the shadow of the man he used to be, the one who'd once believed love could fix anything. "Michael," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. "You don't have to forgive me, but please believe me when I say I never meant to destroy you." He looked at me with such quiet sadness that it broke something inside me. "I forgave you a long time ago, Emily. Not for you, for me. Holding on to anger was killing me more than losing you ever did." I tried to speak, but my throat tightened. "You taught me something," he continued softly. "Sometimes people leave not because they don't love you, but because they can't love themselves while they're with you. We were both drowning, and neither of us knew how to save the other." I covered my face, sobbing quietly. "I wish I could go back." He shook his head gently. "Don't. The past already took enough from us. Learn from it, don't live in it." When I finally looked up, he smiled. Not the tender smile I remembered, but one filled with peace. "Goodbye, Emily," he said. "Goodbye," I whispered. He stood, slipped his hands into his pockets, and walked away without looking back. I sat there long after he was gone, the world moving on around me. The sound of laughter, the rustling leaves, the hum of distant traffic. All reminders that life continued, even for those who'd lost their place in it. That night, I wrote him a letter. Not to send, just to say the things I couldn't out loud. You once told me love means showing up even when it's hard. I failed you then, but I won't fail myself now. I'll live differently, not to erase what I did, but to honor what you taught me. Months later, I saw him again, on television this time. He was giving a speech at the opening of his foundation, talking about hope, resilience, and the power of second chances. His voice was calm, his presence magnetic. The camera caught the small scar on his cheek I used to kiss goodnight. For a moment, I smiled through the tears. Because in some strange, beautiful way, his story had given both of us a second chance. His to rebuild, mine to repent. And though he no longer belonged to my world, I finally understood what he meant by letting go. He didn't just forgive me. He freed me.